Would y'all do me a favor, just stand up for a minute and just thank God for Toya. Thank God. She said no. Just thank God and let her feel comfortable. Let her feel right at home. Amen. Thank God for her. Amen. Don't we look good together? Y'all? Anybody want to take a picture of her? Anybody? Amen. Oh, you want to take a picture? Amen. Thank God for Toya. Amen.
Good morning again. We talking about he got to watch what I say. We have to watch what he says. But I'm not going to be before you long. Let me not say that, because when they say that, they be before you long. So we just going to get into the word. I'm going to be coming out of 1 Peter chapter 4. 1 Peter chapter 4. And I'm reading out of the NIV version Bible. 1 Peter chapter 4, starting at verse 16. Anybody need some more time? Say, hold up, wait a minute. Oh, Lord. 1 Peter chapter 4, starting at verse 16. All right, we're going to go ahead and read, and it reads as follows. However, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed, but praise God that you bear that name. For it is time for judgment to begin with God's household. And if it begins with us, what will the outcome be for those who do not obey the gospel of God? And if it is hard for the righteous to be saved, what will become of the ungodly and the sinner? So then, those who suffer according to God's will should commit themselves to their faithful Creator and continue to do good. You may be seated. And I wanted to do a topic, and so I'm going to do suffer now, rejoice later. Suffer now, rejoice later. And I like this particular text because what's happening in this text is the Apostle Peter is talking to all these different churches, kind of like I'm doing to you right now. And he's trying to tell them what to get prepared for. As we know, the Israelites have a tendency to not be consistent. They will follow after God, and as soon as the idol comes, they'll fall off. They'll follow after him, and as soon as it gets too hard, they'll fall off. And so here's some pretty decent Christians. And I'm going to assume that y'all are pretty decent Christians. And so he's in the same environment as I am, and he's talking to them, and he's trying to explain to them how to be a Christian while suffering. And so he's talking to them, and he's letting them know, I know that y'all think everything is good, and God has blessed y'all, and I know that y'all know about him and all the things he's done for your ancestors. He's taken them through the Red Sea. He's taken them to the Jordan River. He's blessed them tremendously. So I know that you already know that. He says, but embrace your suffering because it's coming. And so he's getting them prepared for what's to come. He understands that with good days come bad days. And so he don't want them just to take the good days from God. He wants them to take the bad days as well. And so he's getting them ready for the suffering that is to come. And who better to tell them about suffering than Peter? Peter is the one who, when asked who God was, who Jesus was, he denied him 3 times. This is Peter. And so he was a good one to tell him what to do during suffering because the heat was turned up on him a lot of times. When he was traveling with the other apostles, he went through hell and hot water trying to deliver a message about a God who saves. He wasn't doing anything else, but he was delivering a message about his son, Jesus, and trying to get people to correct their lives. And so here he is, and he's telling these people all about Jesus and what Jesus can do and what Jesus has done. And now that he's come and he's suffered, that he's fit to start with y'all. And so I'm doing the same thing to you guys. He's not fit to go into the clubs and the strip clubs, but he's going to start with the church house. He's coming into the church house, and that's who he's going to judge first. So here we are, and I'm behind this pulpit. I'm supposed to tell you, just as Peter did, about your suffering. We're not supposed to be here just talking about the good days, but we need to learn how to embrace our suffering. And so he's telling them that he's starting here first, and that if he judges us, and he starts with us first, how much harder is it going to be for the ones that are unchurched, the ones that do not even know him, don't give him any kind of praise? I was thinking about Noah, and when he was building the ark, everybody thought he was stupid. He was suffering because he was tired. He was doing it by himself. He put everybody in there, and he closed it up, and they still thought he was stupid. They didn't understand what he was doing. But the minute the water came, I can imagine in my head, they began to pound, let us in, and it was too late. Because God had already prepared his people. He had already told them some suffering's fit to come, and this suffering I don't want you to endure. So I'm going to steal you away, and you can bring as many people as you want with you, but if they don't want to come, then you leave them, and you get the one that do. And you get the animals, and you be stored away. And that's what God sometimes does in our life. He says, you know what? It's fit to be an accident on the loop. It's fit to be this right here, so I'm going to store you away because I don't want you to go through that suffering, because that kind of suffering you can't handle. And so he goes on and he tells them, he says it's hard to live this Christian life, not because of God, but because of the suffering that comes with it. People begin to talk about you. People begin to treat you like crazy when you represent Christ. You can be cool with everybody, and everybody can be around you and in your circle and in your face. But the minute you proclaim the name of Christ, they start to leave. Has anybody seen this? Am I the only one? And so, with that being said, that's what Peter was doing. And so what I want to talk about is to us. Now, we as Christians often look at people as Christians, and they're all dressed up in their Sunday's best, and they look the part. They have their hair done, nails done, makeup, everything looks the part. They pull up in a nice car. They have gas in their tank. We assume these things, the unchurched. They assume that we got it all together because we look the part. I always tell LaDana, I would never know what you went through because of the way you look. You present yourself very nicely. But when I start talking to you, then I'm like, wow. But like he said, when you show yourself, people look at you, so it can backfire though. Because I'm presenting myself as looking good. I'm presenting myself as if my life is not jacked up. But could be going through hell and hot water. And what I'm doing to the unchurched is every time they see me and they ask me how I'm doing, I'm saying I'm blessed and highly favored. When I'm getting ready to experience eviction, when I'm getting ready to go through not having any food in my house, but I'm telling everybody I'm blessed and I'm highly favored. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I got everything good. My life's not jacked up. I'm doing good. I got gas in my car. Everything is perfect with me. And I know some of you are saying, well, we're supposed to say we're blessed. Yes, you are, but you need to be real. Somebody asked me how I'm doing. I say, girl, I'm doing good, but these kids drive me up a wall. But I'm doing good. I'm blessed and highly favored. It's time to start being real, because what we've done is we've given these unchurched a preconceived notion that being a Christian looks this way. And so what happens is when I come to the altar and I give my life to Christ and I say I accept him, I go out and I feel good. I get in my car and I feel good. I make it home and I feel good. Come Monday morning, I go to work and somebody cusses me out, and all of a sudden the suffering has started, and now I am mad because these people led me astray. They told me that Christian looked like this. They told me that I wouldn't have to go through any suffering when I became a Christian. I don't see the pastor struggling. I don't see his wife struggling. They're not going out for it without anything. So I'm not worried about suffering. So the minute suffering hits, that's when everybody starts going back into the world. So we have done that, and we can change that by starting to be real. But we have done that, and so here is the unchurched, and they're looking at us as an example, and we've set the example kind of wrong because we made them think that this is what it is. There are some people, like he talked about last Sunday, that are going through some things, and it's deep in the inside, and nobody can see it. Nobody will know anything about it unless you begin to talk about it. And what's wrong with us is we've held it all in, and we don't want anybody to know that we're going through depression, we're going through suicide. And so nobody can help us because nobody knows what we're suffering with. And so now that this is true, what happens is we sit there and we all get together and we come together and we try to build one another up. But how can I build you when I don't even know you're knocked down? How can I help you with suffering when I don't even know what you've lost? And so what we've done is we made people think that being a Christian, I'm not going to lose anything. I'm not going to experience difficult times. When I'm a Christian, everything's going to be good. I'm going to be living in the overflow. I'm going to be living in prosperity. I'm going to have favor coming my way. And while that is true, I want you to do just like Peter told them, get ready for your suffering. Because if it hasn't already started, then it is on the way. You may be living the good life right now, but sometime, somewhere or another, suffering is going to come, and you've got to know how to embrace it and love it and hold it tight instead of getting upset and isolating yourself and taking yourself away from people. When I became a Christian, I had a lot of friends. Everybody loved me. The moment I really became a Christian, because I've been one my whole life, but I wasn't a real one. The moment I really gave myself to Christ, I stopped the club, I stopped the drinking, I stopped the smoking, I stopped the talking too much, sometimes. But I stopped all that. The minute I stopped doing all that, then that's when my friends started disappearing. Not just my friends, but my family started disappearing. And it didn't stop there. Some church folks started talking about me. I started experiencing the same things out there that I was experiencing in the church. And so I got some suffering. And what I did was, normally, I would try to back out and I'd say, this ain't for me no more. But instead, I buckled down and I held on tight and I said, it's like a roller coaster. I'm not letting go. I don't care how scary it is. And so what God did was he delivered me, and I understand that once I got out of that hurdle, there was another hurdle coming, but now I knew how to cross it. So I understood how to do my suffering. And so I wanted to give y'all an example of somebody who suffered. And everybody know the story of Job. Pretty much everybody know the story of Job. And if you don't know, I'm going to tell you real quickly my version. Job was a good man. He was a faithful man. He loved God. He was a very diligent man. He did what he was supposed to do. He was a good Christian. Like some of you say you are, that's what he was. He was a good Christian. He dressed the part. He was a good husband. He didn't beat his wife. He made sure he took care of his kids. His kids didn't listen to him always. They did things that were wrong. So he would always go and pray and sacrifice offerings and make atonement for their sins. He was interceding daily for his children. And so he was a good man. Nothing was wrong. He was a perfect man. And here he is living the good life. He's a Christian, no suffering, good. He's very wealthy, got all this livestock and everything. Living the good life, right? So what happens is Satan goes to God. I don't know why he went to go visit Jesus or whatever. I don't know why. But he goes to God and he says, God says, what are you doing? He says, oh, I'm just out and about and, I'm just looking the earth over. And he says, okay, well, what's going on? He says, well, what can I do? And he says, you know what? I have a servant and his name is Job. And I consider him to be upright. He says, I'm going to permit you. And notice the word permit. He said, I'm going to permit you to go. And I'm going to permit you to go and mess with him a little bit. You can do whatever you want, but don't touch my servants. And that's what God has done to some of us. He's permitted some things to happen in our life. He's permitted some mess to come in our life. He's presented some men and women to come in our life that have rocked our world. He's presented some situations in our life, and he's allowed them to come into our life, and they've knocked the life out of us, but they have not touched us. He's given the enemy this kind of thing. He said, you know what? You can go touch my child, but don't hurt them. You can go do whatever you want. You can take whatever you want away. Because what happened was Satan was confused. Satan thought that Job only loved God because he thought he only loved God because, he thought that Satan only loved God because he was very loyal to him. He thought God was unfair. He thought that God was just giving him everything, kind of like he do now. He thinks that God is just good for us. He just gives us everything. He said, you're giving him everything. That's why he loves you. He don't really love you. You start taking some of that stuff away, he won't be loyal to you. And God was sitting there telling him, no, it's far deeper than that. So he let him do whatever he wanted. And so what happens? The enemy goes, and all of a sudden, he loses his livestock. He loses all his livestock. That's his livelihood. Imagine tomorrow if you wake up and your job is just gone. A tornado came and your job is gone. So that's what happened to him. His livestock is gone. He has no more money. And it didn't stop there. Then a tornado came while his children were eating and drinking and partying and living it up and took them and they died. So now he's going through hell and he's just sitting there and he doesn't know what's going on. He's confused and he's upset and he's hurt and he's broken, but he did not curse God. And so the devil goes back to God and he says, you know what? Your servant is still loyal to you. He hasn't cursed you, but that's because you haven't allowed me to touch him. So then what he says is, well, I'm going to permit you to touch him, but don't kill him. And that's the same thing God has done in our lives. He's permitted Satan to touch us. We're wondering why we're really going through something. We got health issues. We got mind issues. We got all kinds of things we're going through. We're battling depression and psychiatry. Like all this different stuff is going on in our mind. And we're wondering what's going on. He said that he's permitted him to touch you, but he can't kill you. So you may be in CCU, but he can't kill you. He's trying to knock you down. He's trying to destroy you. He's trying to hurt you. He's trying to bring you to your knees. But the one thing you have on your side is the fact that he cannot kill you. Now, the outside of your body, he's going to touch that. He's going to try to damage it, but he cannot kill you because God didn't permit him to do that. And so that's what happened to Job. And so he went through this suffering, and so all of a sudden these things started coming on his arms. He started getting boils, and all this stuff started getting all over him. And he could have easily cursed God and been done with it. And here comes his wife. And she tells him, all this stuff is going through you, and you're still trying to be a Christian. You need to curse your God and let him go. Like, why are you hanging on to this? And this might sound familiar to some of y'all. Maybe y'all have had somebody that you come to church all the time, you come on Sundays, you come on Wednesday, you always saying I'm blessed, you always saying this, and then they're sitting there talking about why are you doing that? Why are you worshiping him? Why are you giving your money? Why are you doing that? The pastor doing this with the money. They doing that. Why are you worried about that? It's somebody in your ear trying to distract you from what God wants you to have. Because he's not going to bring suffering without allowing you to rejoice. So they don't want you to get to the rejoice, so they want you to remember the suffering. But if you do like Job and say, I don't care what kind of condition I'm in, I don't care what hell I'm going through, I don't care what happens to this body, I don't care what he decides to take, I don't even care if he takes you. But the one thing about it is I will not give up on my God. And so that's what he does. And so he never curses God, and that's the whole point. That's what the devil wanted him to do. He wanted him to curse God and die. And so as in our lives, that's what we've got to start doing. We've got to learn how to start suffering. We've got to learn that when a bill is due, that we don't have to give up on life. We've got to learn that some people, they don't want to come to church. They don't want to come here when they faced with all kind of bad problems and things in their life. But that's the time you get on your knees and you come to God the most. When I was really going through something, when I got in my word, I was crying and reading that thing. But that's when I started feeling victory. That's when I started feeling health come in my body. And what we want to do is we want to isolate ourselves. We want to turn ourselves away. We don't want to embrace the suffering. And God is saying it's time out for that. Don't take my good without taking my bad. What if it was switched? What if all you got was bad and all you saw was a glimpse of good? Would you not snatch that quick? So God is saying, don't do that with the bad. I'm giving it to you, but it's not for you to just fall down dead. It's to embrace you. It's to make you higher. It's to build you up. It's to elevate you. When you go to school and you learn all these things, they do the STAR test. We don't like them. But they do that to see what they need to change. They do that to see how well you are learning, how you're doing, what they need to ask you more of, what they need to input in school. And so God does that with us. He allows us to go through things, and then all of a sudden he says, okay, walk it on out. Do it yourself. You got this together, so now I'm going to test you. I'm going to allow this to happen, and I know that you're going to still be faithful to me. But what happens is when the suffering comes, a lot of us don't know how to embrace it. We don't know what's going on. We're like, God, why would you do this? Job even did this. He said, God, what did I do so wrong? I thought I was living good. I thought I was doing what was right. How am I out of order? He was talking to God. What did I do? What mistake did I make? He thought God was being unfair for a second. He didn't curse him, but he did question him. God, what's going on? I was taking care of my kids, and I was praying, and I was going to church, and I was doing what I was supposed to do. So why this? Why am I in pain? He said, kill me now. Have any of you felt like that? You're just in a situation where you just said, God, kill me now. I'm tired of living. I can't do this anymore. It's just the pain is just unbearable. I can't take it anymore. And you just ask God to just deliver it from you either way he want to do it. There's been times when we have done that, and God is saying, I don't want you to do that anymore. What I want you to do is learn to embrace it. I'm not giving it to you to knock you down. I'm giving it to you to pick you up. I'm not taking this out of your life to make people hate you. I'm taking this out of your life to make you better. When you go to the club and all that, you did it hard. But we suffered all the time. We sat there and saved up money to get tickets for the NFL, the NBA. We'll save up our money. We'll go out there and what they call them, the tail parties. You go out there and tailgate. You get there early. You do whatever you got to do. If you go into the club, you go get you a fit from head to toe. You look the part. You would suffer. You would suffer financially. You would suffer as far as driving. You can get off of work and still go try to catch the Super Bowl game. So we can suffer for other things, materialistic things, but we don't want to suffer for Christ. And Christ is saying it's time out for that. All I want my children to do is learn how to suffer. If you learn how to suffer for me, then you will rejoice later. God did this when he sent his son Jesus. Jesus came here and he was walking the earth and he endured some suffering. And then after he suffered and they killed him, they did not touch his soul. He went up to be with God. So after he went through his suffering, he rejoiced later because he brought all of us with him. They did this to Stephen. They tried to stone Stephen to death because he was doing what Christ told him to do. But even in the midst of stoning him, he did not curse God. He said, God, I don't know why this is happening to me, Lord God, but I thank you for it. And I know that I'm going home to see you. So it's a lot of people that went through this. He did this with Paul. Paul got beat up. He got dragged out of cities. He got talked about. They wanted to bring up his past. When he tried to minister, they said, oh, well, don't forget that you was a murderer. Don't forget that you did this. Don't forget that you did that. And he said, yeah, I know what I did, but look at me now. And so he tried to walk that thing out, and they tried to kill him. They tried to hurt him. Not because he was Paul, but they tried to hurt him because who he was talking about. And that's what's going on with you. People are in your life trying to attack you. They're trying to hurt you. They're trying to bring you down. And it's not because of who you are. They could care less about that. But it's because of the God in you. They start to see that light in you that starts to shine, and it's uncontrollable, and they can't turn it off. And when they see that light inside of you, it makes them uncomfortable, and it makes them mad. And when you start coming around and you start changing, then you go through some suffering with your friends and family because they can't understand it. They don't like it. You make them uncomfortable, so they start moving. They start getting away from you, and they start telling you that you're getting high and mighty and that you're not doing things decent and in order and that you're a sellout. But God is saying, if you will just suffer with me, I'm going to take who I want out of your life. I'm going to put them there for a temporary situation. I'm going to take them out permanently, and you're going to move forward. You're going to get what you needed from them, and I'm going to keep on moving you. So I don't know who I'm talking to, but God is ready to deliver you. God is ready to save you. God is ready to help you through that thing. But what you've got to do is learn to embrace your suffering. Some of you are excited every Sunday, and then you go home and you're back to doing the same old thing. There ought to be some evidence that something has changed in your life when you go home. When you go to the club, you ought to start feeling uncomfortable. I know I did. I speak on myself. I would go to and everybody looking at me, I just felt weird, didn't want to order a drink. I just wanted to go home. I did not feel right because there was something on the inside of me that started changing me. And then when I started changing, everybody said I was a sellout. They said I was this. They said I was that. People started talking to me. My own family started saying, here she come again with Jesus. And I said, here I am with Jesus because I got to talk about him because this is my way out. And so what happens is too often we give up because we don't want to go through what it takes. We don't want to love God because we don't want to give up the club. We don't want to love God and serve him because we don't want to give up the drink and the smoking and all that. We don't want to love God because it's too hard. It's too hard to love God and hold on to these things. We want to be lukewarm. We want to be comfortable. And when God starts bringing us through some things, he starts making us uncomfortable, and he starts making us go through suffering, and hell is on our job, and hell is at our church, and hell is everywhere we turn. When we start going through things, it makes us upset, it makes us angry, and we start questioning God, why am I here? Why am I going through this? Why are you allowing this to happen? Why did you allow him to walk in my life and walk out of my life? Why did you allow me to fall for these lies and when they was playing games? Why? We start to question God. Why is this happening? Why are they trying to take this from me? Why are they hurting me? Why are they breaking me? Why is my job? Why am I losing my job? Why am I not getting promoted? Why? Because I'm talking about you. Oh my God, I got to be quiet and now everybody watching me. Why? But Christ says, if you will suffer for me, if you suffer and you bear my name, if you keep on saying, I live for Jesus and I die for Jesus, if you'll just keep on doing that, if you'll hold on to me, I won't let you go. Your friends will let you go. The job is temporary and all this stuff, but I won't let you go if you hold on to me. So it's time for some people to get out of their comfort zone and to start suffering. Seriously, it's time for us to get out of our comfort zones and start suffering. A lot of people are not ready to give up things because they don't want to suffer. And God is talking to you. He said, give it up. It's time to give up the club. It's time to give up the shacking up. It's time to give up the living together. It's time to give it up. And yes, you're going to suffer. Yes, it's going to hurt like hell. But you've got to give it up so you can get what God is trying to give you. Because if you suffer with him, then you're going to rejoice with him. You don't suffer always. There is a morning. You're not going to suffer every day of your life. Job went through a lot of things. He went through a lot of suffering. He lost a lot of things. But at the end of it all, God came back in and everybody came to him and they ran to him and they said, we're sorry for whatever we did that made God feel this way about you. And not only that, but he got double for his trouble. God blessed him again with everything that he took from him. So if you lose a best friend, so what? God's going to send you a best friend that's going to be like a brick and that's going to stand right there no matter what comes your way. You lose a job, so what? God's going to send you a job that's going to help you financially and still allow you to go to church. So what? You lose your little pastime curricular activities. You can't go to the club. You can't go here. God says, I'm going to send a Bible study. I'm going to send a ministry. I'm going to send something your way so you can praise and worship me. If only you can endure in the suffering. We can suffer for everything else. We can give up everything else. We can go on a diet and we can sit there and try to look cute in our little bathing suits and we can give up food and we can give up all this, but we dare not suffer for Christ. And Christ is saying it's time out for that. If you can suffer for all these materialistic things, all these worldly things, then you need to suffer for me. So don't get upset. Don't get mad. People talk about me now because I've learned this concept and I've embraced this concept. And something happens and they come to me and I'm like, oh, girl, God's going to do something in your life. He's about to break you out of bondage. He's about to set you free. You're not going through that for nothing. He's fit to elevate you. He's fit to take you higher. Every time you go through a test and you pass it victoriously, God elevates you higher. You came in the church and you didn't know him much, but you stayed through the suffering. So God puts you in the church and gets you to work and you stayed through the suffering. God puts you over a ministry. You stayed through the suffering. God has you up here speaking the word. But only if you can endure the suffering. But too often we have withdrawals from the world. We suffer for Christ and we don't mind doing that, but then we start having withdrawals from the world. We want to go back to the world and doing the same old thing. We start thinking the club is calling our name. They put it on the social media sites that it's going down tonight, and we start thinking that we're missing out on something. We start thinking this suffering that I'm doing, trying to stay at home with my family, no, that ain't supposed to be doing that. I need to be out. They said it's going down. And God said that's exactly where you're going if you're not going to follow my word. You're going to go down all right, but you're going to go to hell if you're not going to listen to me. It's time out for these sugar-coated messages, and it's time for us to be real. You can either suffer for Christ and rejoice with him, or you can rejoice now here on earth, and you can suffer when you go to hell. That is your choices that you get. There's nothing else. You can suffer now and rejoice later when God gives you that big payoff and say, I saw when you helped this person. I saw when they talked about you. I saw when they knocked down your ministry and you kept on singing. I saw when they told you not to preach and you kept on teaching. I saw when they tried to break up your marriage and you stayed together. I saw when they got mad at you for giving up on them and leaving the club behind. I saw when they walked out of your life. I saw when all these things happened. And because you did that, here is your payoff. Walk into heaven. But if we're not going to do that, if we're not going to embrace our suffering, then what's going to happen is we're going to live it up down here. We're going to have the good life down here. And then God's going to say, depart from me, for I know you not. So I have to ask you a question. Is it better to suffer down here or rejoice down here? Would you rather be living the good life? Would you rather be in the club? Would you rather be singing? Would you rather be doing all these things for the world? Or would you want to come to Christ and would you want to do things right? He can change your whole life. He can make you new. He can make you better, but only if you're willing to do it. You got to take his good and his bad. Sometimes we get selfish. We just want the good. God, I need my car to work. Oh, my car's working. God, I need a promotion on my job. Oh, I got a promotion. Oh, God, I need this to work. And everything's working in your favor. And then all of a sudden, you hear something bad. They say they're cutting off, laying off people. And instantly, you go through suffering and you get uncomfortable and you get mad. God is saying it's time out for that. He don't want people like that. He wants people that are going to be like Job, that are going to be like Stephen, that are going to be like Paul, and they're going to suffer for his name's sake. He's tired of the wimpy Christians. He's ready for some strong Christians that say, come hell or high water, Lord, I'm going to serve you. If my bills are paid or not, I'm going to serve you. If I have shoes on or not, I'm going to serve you. I don't care if there's no food in my refrigerator. Lord, I'm going to serve you. I'm not going to go back to selling. I'm not going to go back to drugs. I'm not going to go back to the world to escape when I get upset. I'm not going to go back to drinking. I'm not going to go back to smoking. When I get mad, I'm going to get in my word and I'm going to get the best medicine that you've ever given me. And that's what God is ready for. He's ready for us to start being elevated with our suffering. Instead of thinking that we're doomed. That it's all over. So continue to praise. Be patient. Don't give up. And don't be surprised when your suffering comes. Begin to rejoice. Begin to get excited. They're going to look at you crazy. You're going to really be able to tell somebody something. They're going to say, girl, they laying off people. Girl, are they? Woo! I'm excited. Girl, you may be the one. I don't care. That means God got something else in store for me. He's ready to give me something else. So if he takes one thing out of your life, don't worry about it. Because he's going to give you two in its place. If he removes people out of your life, don't worry about it. He's going to put new people in your life. So suffer now and rejoice later. If only you get through the suffering. So when you go home and stuff start happening, bills start popping up, relationship problems start coming, start suffering to Christ. Start suffering for him. Don't get upset. Don't get overwhelmed. When you have to start giving up things, you start feeling uncomfortable, suffer for him. Give up the drink. Give up the cigarettes. It ought to be some kind of evidence in your life. If you're not suffering, I question what's going on in your life. Because even though my life is good, I suffer when people ask me to do this. When I see a margarita, I suffer because I'm like, ooh, I remember when. So it ought to be some suffering in your life. And if you're not going through suffering, then I would question that. I would really go home and think about it. I'm not saying, don't say she said go home and I should be suffering every day. I didn't say that. But I'm saying there should be some suffering somewhere. All right? And then that is our message today. And if you feel that you're ready to just suffer, you're ready to embrace God's suffering, you're ready to get delivered, you're ready to get healed, you're saying, God, whatever it is, I'm ready. We're going to do as our pastor says and close our eyes. And if you're ready to suffer, I want people that's for real about suffering. I'm ready to suffer, God. I'm ready to suffer now because I'm ready to rejoice later. I'm ready to give up the streets. I'm ready to give up the drugs. I'm ready to give up everything. I'm ready to just rejoice with you. I'm ready to give up the suicidal thoughts, the depression. I'm ready to give it all up for you. I'm ready to suffer for you. Now is your time to come while he is singing.
Your perfect plan, and you gave me my ear, Lord. I can hear your voice so clear. I can hear the cries of sinners, but can I wipe away their tears? Oh, you gave me voice to speak your word, to sing all your praises to those who never heard. But with my eyes I see a need for more availability. I see hearts that have been broken, so many